What's up, everybody? I'm Flash. This is One Man's Opinion, the show where we cover just about everything. And today, we're talking about the college football playoff championship game. Who's going to win? The Natty. It's the only game I haven't covered yet. And just so you know, I ended up going 27-15 in the bowl picks this year. That's a really good record, or at least it is for me. I almost got 2/3 of the bowl picks correctly. So if you watch my videos, maybe you got some wins off some of my picks too this year. I hope you did. If not, then hey, there's always next year, but don't look for me to do that well next year. Usually if I get above 50% on the bowl sheets, I'm pretty proud of what I've done. I don't claim to be an expert in this at all, but it's something I always have fun doing. And the only thing I haven't talked about yet was the national championship game, basically because you don't know going in who's going to be in it. Obviously, I picked Michigan and Georgia to be in the national championship game. I got 50-50 on that one. Got Georgia, did not get Michigan in, but I was pretty sold on the fact that TCU could win the game going in. If you've watched that video, I talked at length about how TCU had the right motivations and the right tools to win the ball game. I just wasn't sure that they could stop Michigan enough to do it. They pulled it off. They played a really, really good game, and now we're looking ahead to Georgia and TCU. And this game, honestly, I think is going to be a really tough one to call. I think there are a lot of things that go into this ball game that are going to make it very, very difficult. And honestly, I've gone back and forth on who I think will win the game. I would like to say that I had more faith in Georgia's defense than TCU's defense, but honestly, Ohio State put up 41 on Georgia in the first round of the playoffs. Michigan put up 45 on TCU, but Michigan has a much more explosive offense than Ohio State, I think, and we all know and saw those two teams play each other. Michigan was a much better team. There's questions about how they will come into the game against Georgia as a team that is kind of finding itself in this situation. It doesn't quite have the pedigree that Georgia has. In recent years, Georgia's been very, very good and very, very consistent. Obviously, they're the defending national title holders, so there's a lot of reason to believe that they've been here and they've done that and they know what they're doing, so that they will be successful because they found success. But we all know it's very hard to repeat. Talking about TCU's motivation coming into the game, there could be speculation that says, well, TCU will be very satisfied to have made it this far. A lot of people kind of slept on them, didn't think that they could get the job done against Michigan. That win takes a lot out of you, emotionally, mentally draining to pull off a win like that. And sometimes you can see a team, kind of look at it and say, okay, that was the big moral victory. We've proven now that we can play with anybody in the country, and so it would be easy to see TCU coming into this ball game and saying, man, we've accomplished a lot, and not quite having the motivation. Georgia has right the opposite. They kind of slept on Ohio State a little bit. They kind of let Ohio State, dominate them for a large portion of the game. Georgia coming back and winning it there in the fourth quarter. And so you could easily say, okay, a lot of people are now looking at TCU and saying, hey, they seem to be the better team. If you just go off those playoff games, I think TCU played a better football game than Georgia did. And so it'd be easy to say, okay, well, that gives Georgia motivation. People are now looking at TCU, and Georgia is the one that people are starting to say, hey, this team may not be as good as we thought they were going to be. And so you kind of flip the coin there and say, hey, that's good motivation for Georgia, the number one team in the country, the defending national championship winners, coming into the ball game with people kind of having, raised eyebrows at them and saying, I don't know, maybe they're not quite as good as we thought they were. And I got to admit, I'm kind of having that. It's not that I don't think that Georgia is as good as I thought they were. I think TCU is much better than I thought they were. And I think Max Duggan has a really good chance of giving Georgia's defense a lot of trouble. We saw Ohio State really run up the scoreboard on Georgia. They scored way more points than I thought they were going to be able to. I thought Georgia's defense would hold strong. I expected Georgia's offense to score quite a bit. To be honest, I didn't think it would be too much of a ball game. I thought Georgia would win it by 3 touchdowns, but that's not what happened. And, was Georgia's defense exposed, or were they just kind of, sleepwalking through the first half of the game? Were they not Were they looking past Ohio State? Were they already seeing the title? It's hard to know these things when you're talking about football teams because so much of the game is mental. So much of the game is decided before you ever even step on the field. The planning that goes into a football game and the mental state of the team and the coaches, already half the battle is won if your players come into the game the right way. And I think that that's going to be part of the issue here. Now, Stetson Bennett on the other side, we talked about Duggan a little bit and how much I really do believe he's going to give Georgia a lot of trouble because he is that dual threat quarterback, and the dude, I mean, he can run the ball pretty well. On the other side, you've got Stetson Bennett, who is a little bit more of a pocket passer type quarterback who has done this before. He's been there. He's won the Natty. And so, he has that experience. He understands chips back to back. It's something that is very, very rarely done, something that you almost never see. And so we have a recipe for what could be an incredible, incredible ball game. And I really do believe it's going to come down to whose defense steps up the most. And I got to be honest with you, after watching both of these games, TCU's defense looked a little better. Yeah, they gave up a little more points, but Michigan is a much better offensive team with much more options than Ohio State has. Michigan's running back was absolutely killing it coming into this ball game and had a pretty decent game in the game. But TCU was still able to outscore Michigan, and Georgia barely won their game. I mean, if Ohio State makes the kick at the end, we're talking about a whole different matchup here. And people are really, really confident TCU would beat Ohio State because they just beat Michigan, who trounced Ohio State just not too long ago. And so as much as I want to pick Georgia, and I think that they are the better football team and that they're going to have the right motivation coming into this ball game, it seems like TCU is actually playing better football right now. And anything could happen. And I thought looking at the field that they were the best team among the four. And I still think in many ways they are the best team. But they're going to have to play significantly better against TCU than they did against Ohio State. And that's the big question is, will they? Will they show up? Most of the people on that team already have a ring. Except for the true freshmen who just showed up there. They all already have a ring. And so will they be motivated? Will everyone kind of looking down on them for their performance against Ohio State be enough to motivate them to win this game? And on the flip side of that, will TCU have the energy after such a huge sigh of relief after winning against Michigan? Now look, they played lights out against Michigan. They were in the game the whole time. It wasn't like Georgia. Georgia had to come from behind. TCU controlled a lot of that football game. It was very good. It was a very good ball game. But that had to take a lot out of them. They were the underdogs coming in. And so what kind of energy will they enter the game with? My final thoughts on the game look like this. I think if motivation is the thing that you're looking for going into this game, I think Georgia has more reason to be motivated. This will be TCU's first national title in almost 100 years. They won 2 in the 30s. Very few people living will be able to remember TCU's last title. So it's almost going to be like they've never won one before, certainly to any of the players or any of the people that are involved with the football game, unless they've got somebody who's near 100 years old walking around on the field that I don't know about. And so certainly they have the motivation if you're looking at it from the perspective of saying, okay, well, who's hungrier for a national title as a school? Certainly you could give the edge to TCU there, but it just feels like Georgia being slept on is a huge mistake. You can't sleep on a team like Georgia. They're just too good. They know what they're doing. Kirby Smart's an amazing coach. They've got an excellent team. So motivation, I would give the slight edge to Georgia because after the way they played against Ohio State, they've got something to prove. That's what we talked about if you watched my last video between TCU and Michigan. We talked about how TCU probably had the better motivation. Sometimes the loss gives you a motivation that a team who's undefeated just doesn't have. You've got something to prove. It feels like Georgia is the team with something to prove right now. And so motivation goes to them. But if I'm being totally honest, I need to see them stop a quarterback like Duggan. I need to see them to stop a quarterback like him. And I don't know if they can. I have doubts about Georgia's defense a little bit now. And so though I picked Georgia to win it all in the beginning, after seeing the way the two teams played right now, I think TCU's playing a little bit better football. I think their defense looked a little bit better than Georgia's, and I think their quarterback looked a little bit better than Georgia's. And so right now, if TCU shows up and plays like they did against Michigan, and if Georgia shows up and plays even a little better than they did against Ohio State, I still think TCU will win the football game. So I'm picking TCU to beat Georgia, even though my pre-bowl pick was Georgia to win it against Michigan. I'm now changing, and I think TCU will win it. Well, let me know in the comments below. I know it's very likely that more Georgia fans will watch this than TCU fans just based on my location. And so if you're upset with me or if you don't understand exactly where I'm going or why I made the pick that I did, just let me know in the comments below. We can talk about it a little bit. I know we didn't get into the details of a lot of the player matchups and things like that, but the honest truth is, aside from watching TCU in just a couple of games this year, I don't know many of their players well enough to give that kind of detailed analysis. I have to kind of go with the eyeball test and just the few things that I've seen them in. I, of course, am much more familiar with Georgia football than I am with TCU. But it didn't seem fair to go into matchups and stuff about stuff that I wasn't super educated in. But anyway, let me know in the comments below, what are your thoughts on the national championship going in to the game? Now that you've seen both teams play in the semifinals, who do you think would win the game? Have you changed your mind? Because I think most people would have picked Georgia, 2 weeks ago. But now, it's less certain. I will say that. At least it's less certain. So let me know what your thoughts are. Have you changed your mind on who you think is going to win? Are you still rocking with Georgia? Were you always on TCU's side? Did you always think TCU would win? Where are you at? I want to hear it in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for stopping by, for hanging out with me. It's all just for fun. Like I said, I'm no expert, so I hope you guys have enjoyed watching my bowl picks this year, and watching this video, interacting with me. Thank you guys so much. If you did disagree with me, don't get mad about it. Remember, this is just one man's opinion. Thanks.